Ciao a tutti e benvenuti a Come non perdersi nella traduzione edizione italiana. Welcome everyone. I'm Kristine Mariano and you are watching How Not to Get Lost in Translation Italian edition, brought to you by Radio Agila International. We are today shooting at the EBC studio in Washington, D.C. So before we talk about some fun Italian, I wanted to go over why it's actually good to learn a second language or a new language. So first of all, job opportunities, I think, is one of the greatest things. So nowadays, chances are the ability to speak a second language will set you apart from other applicants. So if you're applying for a job, I'm pretty sure nowadays it is very important to speak a second language. So here in particular in the US, their second most spoken language is Spanish. So if you have the ability to speak Spanish, then I'm pretty sure you probably qualify more than the other applicants for that particular job you're applying for. A second reason is because it's good for your brain. As I mentioned in our previous How Not to Get Lost in Translation, whether you're trying to learn a new language for fun, for work, or just as a new interest, it is truly good to challenge your brain. So what would this do for you? Memory improvement, longer attention span, and cognitive benefits no matter your age. Another reason is for you'll be more interesting and you will be able to even make more cross-cultural friendships. So as I remember when growing up, I actually lived 15 years of my life in Italy. And growing up, one of the things that I remember is that in school, they would, not only in school, but at church, sometimes we would have trips, let's say going to different parts of Europe. And then we would visit, for example, France, or Spain. And if you know how to speak Spanish, then that will be so much easier to make friends that way. Also, it might be fun to read your manga, watch your favorite soap opera or anime cartoon in its original language and actually understand without having any subtitles. How many of us watch cartoons or anime nowadays to entertain ourselves? And I think it's truly a plus if you didn't even need to read the subtitles. I think it would be really cool for you to understand maybe some Japanese. And it would truly, I think it's a skill, a truly beneficial skill for anyone. So those are the reasons why I think learning a new language is really good. Now we want to go over why language learning tips. So maybe some of you are wondering, well, I'm not really interested in learning Italian. Well, just to let you know, How Not to Get Lost in Translation is not only in Italian. Actually, I want to remind you that you have to look forward to and stay tuned for the French edition that's coming soon as well. And we'll have many more other languages in the future. So, tips. First of all, we want to go over repetition. So repetition is very important. A consistent commitment is definitely key to learning a language. So it's the effort and time you put that's very important. On our first episode of How Not to Get Lost in Translation Italian edition, I was constantly saying to repeat and repeat. And the reason why is because As you listen, you will also remember. And by repeating, you will remember the words you're actually saying. Now, it's also important to know what those words mean. So now, if ever you plan to learn a new language, just remember that sometimes big classes where there's more than 10 people are not very efficient. And the reason why is because some classes move at a pace of a slowest student, or if not, the opposite way, where others are learning so fast. So in my experience, when I was in high school in Italy, I took French, and honestly, I felt that it was really hard to keep up. So if you have other people with you, of course, the teacher will not be able to help you out or assist your actual needs. So I believe that a tutor is probably better. It's a little more expensive, but it's efficient. So one-on-one is probably the fastest way to learn. But if you have a class, or you're attending a class, or would like to attend a class, hopefully you attend one that doesn't have more than 10 to 15 people. Everyone learns at a different pace. Some people learn easier than others, so a class will not address each student's personal needs, unfortunately. Another tip for learning a language is start with learning the 100 most common words and phrases as well. You can make sentences with them and challenge yourself to think in the new language. A language needs to be processed and not memorized. You can probably memorize the first 100 words, but it helps to use and apply them in a conversation. And that's something we're going to talk about later on. We're going to go over important to make conversation. Another is carry a pocket dictionary with you, or download one on your phone. Nowadays, that's very popular. We all have our mobile phones with us, and there's so many apps out there nowadays, and one of them is a dictionary. So if you have one that's handy, it will be perfect, especially if you go abroad. And let's say you encounter someone who doesn't speak English. Maybe you want to get a Google Translate, or if not, an actual dictionary, if you have knowledge of the language, and check. Let's say you just had a moment where you don't, then these pocket dictionaries, or if not, the ones on your phone, are very efficient as well. Also, another learning tip is that you have to accept that you're going to make mistakes. So as you learn a new language, you may say things that have a complete meaning from what you would like to say. And that happened to me. That happened to me so many times when I started learning Spanish, because I took Spanish for a very long time as well. That was one of the languages I studied in my life. But it was a lot easier because Italian is very similar to Spanish, and so that's actually a plus. That was actually easier for me to learn some Spanish. Also, another way you can learn languages is using audio and online courses, but only for probably the first 100 words, basic grammar, and fundamental vocabulary. Because sometimes online courses don't really go over like the most common words and phrases. And sometimes you're there learning for so long, but you don't even know when to apply these or when to use them. And so sometimes it's not the most efficient way. So stick to the first 100 words, basic grammar, and fundamental vocabulary. Ultimately, the goal is forcing yourself to speak and communicate with others. So as I said earlier, conversation. Conversation is key also to learning a new language. Make conversation. So particularly with people you know that know the actual language. Conversation will motivate you to speak. It will actually push you to speak, to think and process. So that's very important. As I said earlier, a language needs to be processed and not memorized. So also, studies have shown that 100 words of any language account for 50% of all spoken communication. The most common 1,000 words account for 80%, and the most common 3,000 account for almost 99%. So if you're learning the first 100 words, you're already learning 50% of Italian. 1,000 words would be 80%, and as I said, 3,000 is almost 99%. Also, I wanted to mention that about 1/4 of the people that live in the US can speak a language rather than English, and Spanish is the second language, followed by French. And in the entire world, 50% of the entire world, under certain definition, is bilingual, no matter their social status. Half of the population in Europe is bilingual, and 35% of the population in Canada is bilingual. So as you guys can see, it's truly beneficial and it's a valuable skill to learn a new language. And I hope, whether you're not interested particularly in Italian, I hope this motivates you to challenge yourself. And because ultimately, one more thing that I actually forgot is make it fun. So have fun when learning a language. Watch your favorite shows. That will truly help, as well as me in particular. I still speak with my brother, even though I live in the US now. I still speak with my brother in Italian, and that helps me still practice the Italian language. It still constantly inspires me to speak Italian, because I know that that's what kind of differentiates me from the rest, and it's a heritage. It's something that eventually you probably want to pass on to your kids, and I actually want my kids to speak at least 1 or 2 languages. I think it's something that they will love as well, and they will I feel like it's very important for people nowadays to know more than a language, especially in the world we live in nowadays. We're in a modern era, and so I think everyone should a second language. And so we're going to be taking a break, and when we come back, we're going to go over some fun Italian. We're going to be talking about actually going over the Italian alphabet. So stay tuned. Ciao, ci rivediamo di nuovo. Welcome back to our How Not to Get Lost in Translation Italian edition, o Come non perdersi nella traduzione, edizione italiana. So earlier, we talked about why it's good to learn a new language, as well as learning tips on how to learn a new language. So just at the top of our head, we talked about that it's very important to repeat and follow along, whether you're working with audio as well as online courses. Also, making conversation is key, as we said. So motivate yourself to speak, to think and process so that you actually know what you're saying and you will actually remember if you do know the meaning of the things you're learning. Also, we talked about and because unfortunately they're not as efficient, sometimes a tutor would be better. It can be costly, but it will benefit you a lot more. So actually, in general, like 4 months of 1 hour a day is not as efficient as maybe 3 hours a day for 2 weeks. I think you would learn more, even though it's a very short time. But just because like you're doing it so much every day, then it will definitely benefit you. Also, we mentioned that you have to have fun with the language you're trying to learn. Watch your favorite movies in that language, soap operas, read mangas, as well as watch your favorite anime in the original language, and challenge yourself not to even read those subtitles. And that's, I think, one of the best and fun ways to learn a new language, as well as having with someone who speaks the language. So now we're gonna get to, I believe, the fun part. So on our first episode of How Not to Get Lost in Translation, we went over the basic common greetings as well as introducing yourself and directions. We went over a lot of the words, and I think one of the things that you need to learn before you even pronounce the words is the alphabet. I think we all start there. Even when we were young, the first thing they teach us in school is the alphabet. So why not go over the Italian alphabet? So let's start. Actually, before we start, we don't have the letter X, Y, as well as W. We don't use this as much, although W is doppia V. But unfortunately, we do not have those in our alphabet and we don't use them as much. So let's start. It's A, B, C, G, H, I, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, Z. I don't know if you noticed, but previously I told you that Italians love to roll their R's. And that's one of the things I want to bring up. When we mentioned R, we said R. So we rolled our R's. R. Very important. So when you pronounce a word with the R, you want to be able to say R. Roll your R's. Very important. Also, one other thing that I believe I mentioned in the past is E, which is the letter E in English, is pronounced E. So that's one of the things that people get a little confused about, or when English-speaking people try to pronounce a word in Italian, they end up saying the letter E. They just pronounce it E and they don't say E. So now we're going to go over it one more time and I'm going to make some examples. We can go over how it sounds. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, Z. So now I'm going to make some examples with these letters, starting from the letter A. And with this, you're going to start to add up to your vocabulary, not only introducing yourself or saying, hi, how are you? But now you're going to get to maybe the first 100 words, which will make this like even better. So let's start. A, albergo. Again, albergo. So a, albergo. Albergo means hotel. B, bicicletta. Let me see. Do you know what bicicletta is? I'm pretty sure you do. It sounds like bicycle, right? So bicicletta is bicycle. Ci, cibo, or chiesa. Now I make two examples with this particular letter because C can sound two ways. Chi or chi. So cibo, chiesa. So chi or k. So it can sound, there are two sounds, chi or k for the letter C. These in particular mean cibo, food, chiesa, church. So chiesa means church, and cibo is food. D, direzione. Again, D, direzione. Direzione means direction. E, or E in English. E, età. So remember that. E is E. Età. Età means age. F, fede. For example, fede. Fede means faith. G, gelato. Let me see. Who knows gelato? I'm pretty sure we're all fans of gelato. Who doesn't know gelato? So gelato is ice cream. Also one of the most famous things in Italy. Now, G can also have two sounds. So it's either gelato and G. So it can have the G sound, so gelato, or G. For example, gatto. As you can see, it's two completely different sounds, but it really depends on what letter is next to it. So gatto means kitten or cat. For H, when I was going over what are the words in Italian that starts with H, it was actually hard. And what I found is Himalayano. So I believe it's someone who lives in Himalaya or in the Himalayan country, someone from Himalaya. So that is Akka. And the word is Himalayano. So it sounds like H. I is E. So our word for I is inglese. So it starts inglese. L, which is L, is for, one example is latte. So L latte. Latte is milk. For M or emme, we have mother. Mother is mamma. So you can hear M, mamma. For the letter N or enne in Italian, we have the word nonna. Again, it's nonna, and that means grandmother or grandma. O or O in English, we have ospite. So, O, ospite. Ospite is visitor. P sounds like the regular P in English. Papa. In this case, we have two P's in there. Papa, with the accent on the last vowel, which is the A. Papa. Q, which is Q in Italian, pronounced. Our example for that is quartiere. Starts with a Q. Quartiere. That means neighborhood. R or R, our example for that is ristorante. I'm sure you've heard this word before, and it means exactly what you think. Restaurant. Ristorante. S, senza. And S is esse. Senza, that's how it sounds. Senza. Senza means without. T sounds same as English. Terra. Terra means earth. So terra, earth. U, which is you in English. Our example for that is uova. Uova. Uova is eggs. For V or vu in Italian, we have veloce. Veloce is fast. And for the letter Z, our last letter of the alphabet, we have zanzare. It sounds zanzare. So hope you've enjoyed, and you will keep in touch with, actually keep up with listening to our How Not to Get Lost in Translation Italian edition. I hope you enjoyed this and that you will be tuned in for more so that you can learn more by learning new languages with us. Again, this is Kristine Mariano, and this is How Not to Get Lost in Translation Italian edition, brought to you by Radio Agila International. And I am 1 with 25.